Yes, hello people. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Greetings to all of you from wherever you're watching in the world. And of course, this is continued coverage of the Women's T20 Cricket World Cup, and we have got a cracker for you tonight. The final game in Group B featuring England against New Zealand, live from the Oval in London, England, UK. Of course, interestingly enough, the male counterparts from both these nations are currently involved in the test series. This 1-1 with the third test currently ongoing, I would say. And I can tell you, of course, that after the third day, New Zealand are currently sitting almost pretty, you would say, with a generous lead of 193 runs. They have lost 3 wickets, of course. England were bowled out for 354 in reply to New Zealand's 438, with Ben Duckett scoring a fine century and Jacob Bethel and Harry Brooks scoring half centuries. But apart from that, no one really contributing with the bat. An early dismissal for Joe Root, failing to add to his overnight score of 21. And today, of course, apart from Jofra Archer and Atkinson taking 3 wickets between them, it's not really been much to shout about for the England bowlers. It looks as though they will have a tough job trying to save this test and avoid losing a home series to New Zealand for the first time in several years, I would say. But of course, it's all about the women. Now, the situation as it stands, I can tell you, is this. New Zealand actually need to beat already qualified England to make sure they will make the semi-finals. However, due to events that have taken place earlier today, they can afford to lose by a certain margin as long as it does not affect their net run rate. Especially when you consider just how much in trouble New Zealand's campaign was, having lost to the West Indies and Sri Lanka. They were in danger of losing to Ireland, eventually squeaking through by 4 runs, a single-digit margin, I would say. But since then, and they have now managed to get into a position where they could end up qualifying. And the reason why is that I mentioned Ireland, of course. Earlier today in Bristol, Ireland pulled off an absolute shocker. Their first ever T20 World Cup win, 21st time of asking, beating the West Indies by 6 wickets with 11 balls to go. All Prendergast top scoring with a brilliant innings of 63 off 44 as Ireland, I should say, batted second. Ireland, of course, bowling and fielding magnificently to restrict the West Indies to 128 for 7, and Ireland knocking off the target with very nearly 2 overs to spare, pacing the innings beautifully. And although Prendergast did get at me at the end, it was left to Rebecca Stokel, Leah Paul, and Louise Little to guide them home, which they did. And of course, the significance of this is that the West Indies run rate, which was barely positive, has now become negative, a negative 0.147. So New Zealand know that if they win today, they're through. They also know that if they lose by a certain acceptable margin, they will also qualify by virtue of a better run rate than the West Indies. But Sri Lanka out of contention, despite a final win over Scotland in their final group game. They needed to have a handy win, but because Scotland took them to the final over, Sri Lanka just weren't able to increase the run rate. Now, of course, New Zealand did win the toss, and Amelia Kerr had no hesitation in opting to bat first. And I can tell you that the England lineup is unchanged because Natskiva Bruck has not recovered from her calf injury. So it'll still be Danny White, Hodge, and Amy Jones opening the batting. And it'll be followed, of course, by Sophia Dunkley and Alice Capsey at 3 and 4. Heather Knight, the ex-captain, coming in at 5, followed by the all-rounders Freya Kemp and Danny Gibson, Captain Charlie Dean, and the bowlers Eccleston, Lindsay Smith, and Lauren Bell. And as for New Zealand's lineup, there is, of course, a place in the team for all 3 of their retiring veterans. Susie Bates will be batting at number 7 and not at the top of the order. It'll still be Izzy Gaze and Izzy Sharp batting there. Amelia Kerr, of course, the captain, coming in at number 3, followed by the winning captain from the last T20 World Cup, Sophie Devine, at number 4. Brooke Halliday and Maddie Green will be at 5 and 6. The captain's sister, Jess Kerr, will be at number 8, followed by Nancy Patel, Bria Illing, and another retiring veteran, Leah Tahuhu. We won't be too long now before the anthems start. And of course, As the table shows, New Zealand are currently on 4 points, but with a better run rate than both the West Indies and New Zealand. So they know that a win today will be more than enough for them. It'll put them over the edge. But of course, a loss will also be acceptable, provided it is within a certain target. And of course, just a reminder that this is what we are watching, and we are bringing this to you right now. And it won't be long now before the anthems will be played. Seeing the flags, of course, being unfurled. It's wonderful to watch a different World Cup to what's going on, of course, in the USA. Some really amazing results last night, of course. Today, of course, the group stage action will be concluding with games from groups J, K, and L, which means that England will be in action against Panama. A win is expected. Ghana will be playing Croatia. In group J, of course, which is Argentina's group, they, of course, have qualified as group winners, so they will be playing against Jordan. Expected to be fielding a much-changed team for the sake of rotation. But Algeria and Austria will also be in action to try and get the result they need to secure their passage through. And in Group K, it'll be Colombia against Portugal and the Democratic Republic of Congo against Uzbekistan. So those are your fixtures from the Football World Cup. And it will, of course, be kicking off with the, pardon me, it'll probably be the Group K action that comes first. But it's anthem time, so I'm going to mute my screen and Aotearoa, that is God Defend New Zealand, and God Save the King. And of course, as we all know, the New Zealand national anthem is another anthem which is sung in more than one language. First stanza in Maori and the second one in English. If you're a rugby union fan, you will have heard that sung on many occasions. Certainly, you'd have that followed by the traditional haka. I think it's fair to say that the women will probably not be engaging in that. It would be a spectacle in and of its own. But for cultural reasons, I don't know if the women are allowed to perform the haka. Any New Zealand fans, of course, I think we've got 2 people watching live. Maybe they can confirm that that's the case. And of course, God Save the King, the England/UK national anthem. And as I've said before, I always think it would be nice if England rather had its own national anthem separate from God Save the King. Jerusalem would definitely be wonderful, as has been used in the Commonwealth Games. And of course, the Commonwealth Games will be starting not too long from now in Glasgow in Scotland. Something for Scots to look forward to after what has been a shambolic World Cup campaign. It'll be a much slimmed down version of the Commonwealth Games, and more's the pity. Several events will not be taking place, so I think it's fair to say that there may not even be that much hype around the Commonwealth Games right now. But hopefully we will see more host cities and nations offering to host the Commonwealth Games. I absolutely do love the Commonwealth Games. I think they need to stay. They are, of course, friendship themed games, important in their own right. And if we were to see the end of that, that would be an absolute shame in every single way. A reminder, of course, that New Zealand need to beat England to be sure of making the semi-finals, but they can afford to lose by a certain margin, and I will confirm that later on as it develops. New Zealand, of course, won the toss, and they chose to bat, and already we see the openers going out to bat. It will, of course, be Izzy Gaze and Izzy Sharp, so 2 Izzies. I wonder if they're going to make the England fielders dizzy. Certainly, there's no Gillespie on the field, so you're not going to see any dizziness. If you know, you know. And just going to find out who is opening the batting today. It actually looks as though it'll be Mealy Kerr who will be opening the batting along with Gaze. So Izzy Sharp will probably be coming in at number 3, and then Sophia Devine. Amelia Kerr, the New Zealand captain, has been mostly in the runs for New Zealand and certainly played her share of important innings. So it could very well be that she will have a big role to play today. But Izzy Sharp will be coming in later on, followed by Devine, Halliday, Green, and then Susie Bates at number 7. Susie Bates normally opens, but I think they've now sort of carved out a role for her as a batting all-rounder, someone who can even bowl at the death if required, and she was required to do so against Ireland to prevent what would have been a devastating loss that would have ended the defence of their title. And Mealy Kerr, of course, will be facing the opening ball from Lauren Bell, and she, of course, passed 2,000 T20 international runs earlier in this tournament. Izzy Gaze will be at the non-striker's end, quite young, of course. And actually won't be Lauren Bell opening, it will be Lindsay Smith who will be opening. So the consensus, especially on Cricinfo with the poll, was that if you win the toss at the Oval, you would want to bat first and then try to bowl out the team batting second. So it seems to me as though Charlie Dean has decided, don't want to run the risk of having any loose deliveries from Lauren Bell. Let's bowl, open with some spin, try and keep it tight early on, and Smith can certainly do a job. So it's Lindsay Smith, left arm round the wicket to the right-handed New Zealand captain Amelia Kerr. And the first ball is not very well connected, it must be said. Goes straight to Captain Charlie Dean at mid-on. No one in the comments as of yet, but there are 3 people watching, so thank you all very much indeed for joining in. Second delivery of the over. And Amelia Kerr trying to come down the track, but once again only finding Freya Kemp, who was running in from extra cover, you could say. Lindsay Smith, of course, an economy rate of 6.6. She will be required to keep and then tight. Third delivery, and that is once again straight to the fielder. This time it's Danny White-Hodge who's at cover, I would say. Actually, she's probably more at point, so to speak. The backward point. There is, of course, no slip fielder, and there is no short third man or third man, so any edge will certainly go behind for 4. But at the moment, this is a fine over from Lindsay Smith. The fourth delivery, also a dot ball. Kerr once again trying to come down the track, but not really able to force the issue, get to the line of the ball. She's got 2 deliveries left, starting with this one. And this is nicely played down to mid-wicket, but once again, it'll be well fielded, and that's only going to be a single. That will, of course, bring Izzy Gaze on strike. And probably not the best start that New Zealand would want in terms of trying to get runs on the board. There's no Georgia Plimmer, of course. She hasn't had the best of tournaments, so Amelia Kerr has sort of promoted herself up to open, so to speak. Last ball of Lindsay Smith's over. And that is once again played straight to Freya Kemp at cover. And after the first over, New Zealand only have 1 run on the board. They're going to want to multiply that as the game goes on. New Zealand, of course, now you could say probably wouldn't have expected to have any right to be in a position to qualify for the semi-finals, but they did manage to get their act together. Only just, of course, against Ireland. Beat Scotland, of course. And now they've got a game against England, which they're not necessarily expected to win, but they now know that it's in their hands. And all because, of course, of that beautiful result earlier on today from Bristol. Irish eyes were smiling. And the West Indies were left in tears. Lauren Bell coming into the attack. 7th best bowler in the world. Slightly higher economy rate. And hasn't taken as many wickets as she would like, but I think she'll be hoping to prey on the nervousness, really, of the New Zealand batswomen. They know that this is effectively their last chance. If they get dismissed for a very low total, then you could say that that's their campaign done and dusted. I did, of course, mention that had Nat Skipper-Brunt come back into the side today, she would have brought about a selection conundrum, as the first ball from Bell is played down to extra cover for a dot ball. But as it stands, the likes of Dunkley and Capsey and Knight can keep their places in the team. Kemp and Gibson also find places as all-rounders. White, Hodge and Knight, of course, were the top scorers as England beat the West Indies in their previous game. So gained momentum and kept in form. And the second delivery is not a very good one, played all the way down to square leg. Lindsay Smith, though, from backward square leg running and covering that. That will, however, be 2 runs to the New Zealand captain, Amelia Kerr. Both of these batswomen have had very similar dismissals in the past 2 games. Certainly, actually, against the West Indies and Scotland. So they're going to want to avoid making those same mistakes. Bell to Kerr, left, right arm over the wicket. And this one is heaved all the way over cow corner, and that will be a boundary. So Amelia Kerr getting into the groove, and Bell not really at her best, it has to be said. Sort of angling into the batswoman, but Kerr was more or less expecting that. And that is a fine back foot shot. Well, it actually sort of goes all the way to square leg, not count corner, but any which way, it's a welcome boundary for New Zealand and the New Zealand captain. Fourth delivery, right arm over the wicket to the right-handed Amelia Kerr. And that's played. Certainly want to play it back beyond the bowler, but some inadvertently fine fielding means that there are no runs from that. Hits Lauren Bell on the foot, finds the mid-off field. So the on-field umpires, Gayatri Venugopalan from India, standing in her 29th international today, and Jacqueline Williams from the West Indies is taking part in her 93rd T20 international. Very, very experienced. Fifth delivery of the over. Lauren Bell running in. And that is nicely cut back there to backward point, and that will be a boundary. So clearly the New Zealand captain taking the responsibility head on. One of the youngest players in the team, but certainly was earmarked as a future captain, succeeding Sophie Devine, and she will almost certainly be the one expected to take New Zealand through a certain period, this current period, of course, when three of their stalwarts will be retiring. Last delivery of the over. Bell's been expensive, and that's another run conceded, and that was a misfield there by Sophie Eccleston, but Charlie Dean covering that at mid-on. 11 runs from the over, and that is much better from New Zealand's point of view. They are now 12 for no loss after 2 overs. Lindsay Smith continuing. Left arm round the wicket to Amelia Kerr. She did take a single off the last ball of the previous over, so she is still on strike. And Izzy Gaze has only faced one ball, not troubled the scorers. A couple of potential landmarks. If Susie Bates gets 16 runs, she'll have about 1,000 T20 international runs in England. And if Maddie Green gets another 78, she will have 1,500 T20 runs. And Amelia Kerr plays that all the way down to long on for a single. New Zealand flag there flying high. The Union Jack on the top left corner with a selection of red-coloured stars. Third delivery of the over, still round the wicket. And Izzy Gaze is able to play that down to mid-wicket. They were thinking of running for a second, but there was a fielder running in who said, no, not today. You would think that Sophie Eccleston will definitely have a role to play with the ball later on, as will Captain Charlie Dean. Spin, of course, has literally been the big weapon so far in this tournament. And that is once again nicely played down to, you could say, mid-on there by Amelia Kerr for another single. So that's 3 singles off the second, third, and fourth deliveries. There's good stuff from Lindsay Smith, but you would think that she'd like to bowl maybe a little bit fuller, give it a bit more flight, and maybe look to try and snag a wicket. He's bowling to Izzy Gaze now. Left arm round the wicket still, and Gaze is able to sweep that away to the backward square leg boundary for 4. So she's underway, you could say. Very premeditated shot. Certainly the batswomen moving to the offside, getting down on their back leg and sweeping that over square leg has literally been one of the most popular shots. In fact, that's sort of gone all the way to backward square leg for a 4. Last delivery from Lindsay Smith's over. And that is once again played all the way down to long on, but Alice Capsey doing the fielding and tidying up. And 8 off the over, so New Zealand are now, you could say, on their way. I'm sure they still love a few more runs, but at this particular point, they will take what they can get. And England are going to have to really put their thinking caps on. If Lauren Bell isn't quite able to hit the marks, might have to get another seaman. Maybe Freya Kemp. Right. And just to be clear, of course, Group K action will kick everything off. It'll be Colombia against Portugal and Congo against Uzbekistan. Bell coming back into the attack, and her first delivery, right arm over the wicket, is a fine delivery. Sort of traps Gaze on the block hole. No chance of an LBW shout. Just a reminder, we are in the first 6 overs. This is the 4th over being bowled, so there are no more than 2 fielders who are allowed outside the 25-yard circle. Bell with a second delivery. And that is nicely played, but once again straight to the fielder. Sophia Dunkley there cleaning up at mid-off. And Gaze is obviously quite famous for playing against pace with the scoop. 15% of her runs at the very least are scored that way, the highest of any T20 batswoman at the moment. She's not getting many opportunities to play that scoop as of yet. Third delivery. And still not quite able to sort of get the timing and the movement right with the bat, is he, Gaze? So this is a much better over from Lauren Bell. 3 dot balls so far, after going for 11 in the first over. A short ball there. And Jacqueline Williams signaling that that's acceptable, but only to a limit. So this is a fine recovery from Lauren Bell. If she can end with a maiden, that would be amazing as far as she's concerned. Pitched, and Gaze trying to play the hook shot, but completely missing, and it goes through to Amy Jones. Completely missing it all ends. There is, of course, a deep fielder prowling the point and backward point areas, and England have kept what looks like a slip fielder to try and prevent any edges going behind for 4. And eventually the drought is broken with a single played to mid-wicket. Charlie Dean doing the fielding. And that brings Amelia Kerr back on strike. It was she, of course, who scored the majority of those runs. In fact, she scored all of them. 2 boundaries, a double, and a single off the final ball. Last ball of Bell's over. And Amelia Kerr is able to play that all the way down to deep mid-wicket. Do they run for 2? They say no, thank you. So 2 runs from the over. And New Zealand are a little bit steady now, you could say. I think they're certainly trying to make sure they don't lose any wickets in the power play. So not the quickest of starts, but I think they're sort of trying to consolidate and then maybe build on that as the innings goes on. But they will need to set a target. And in the pitch report today, Ebony Rainford Brent and the former New Zealand wicketkeeper Ian Smith were saying that a total of 180 or 190 would be a minimum. It looks like Lindsay Smith will continue going into her 3rd over. Once again, it's left arm around the wicket. And Amelia Kerr back on strike, hoping to back away and play that through the covers, but only finding Freya Kemp. Extra cover. Second delivery. And she once again gets down on her back leg and sweeps that all the way to the square leg boundary for 4. Smith dropping it a bit short, going down the leg, and Amelia Kerr saying thank you very much indeed. You can see there that that is another shot that's quite popular amongst the batswomen in this tournament. So Smith's got to be careful for her delivery, and once again, it's drifts down to the leg side, and Amelia Kerr plays that down to deep mid wicket, but can only get the single. I think that was Danny Gibson with the fielding there this time. And that brings Izzy Gaze on strike. And a fine sweep there, goes past Sophia Dunkley standing at square leg, not able to cut that off in time, and that will be another boundary. Actually, that might have been Alice Capsey who was doing the fielding for the previous delivery, but Izzy Gaze there, using the sweep brilliantly and just steering it past Sophia Dunkley, who was there at square leg. And that's another fine shot, but that finds its way to Danny Gibson, who was in fact doing the fielding at deep mid wicket. I was right the first time. 10 runs so far from the over, and Lindsay Smith now has to really sort of keep her bearings and keep her composure. She bowled superbly so far, but just this time around not getting the line right. And Kerr plays that for a single all the way down to mid-on, and they do run for 2. So 12 runs from the over. New Zealand at 34 for no loss. Could this be the moment that Charlie Dean brings herself into the attack, maybe? And of course, during the mid-innings break, I will show you the tables, including especially the one from Group B, which will talk about the impact of the West Indies' devastating loss today. It's put their net run rate in a negative, so their fate is out of their hands. And it's Danny Gibson who comes into the attack. All-rounder, right arm, medium-ish bowler who can be a bit quick. She will be bowling over the wicket to the right-handed Izzy Gaze. She plays that all the way down to mid-wicket. That'll be a single. This is, of course, the last over of the power play, so this could very well be the time that Charlie Dean opts to bring herself and Sophie Eccleston into the attack as the main attacking spinners. It's as though Danny Gibson bowling to Amelia Kerr is looking for the outswinger, but not able to get it. That is a fine square cut from the New Zealand captain that goes all the way to the boundary, bisecting the point and backward point fielders. The New Zealand captain has had a fine tournament so far. She was, of course, the player of the tournament when New Zealand won it in the UAE. Gorgeously placed. Nobody was going to get that. Third delivery. And hoping to try to guide that down to mid-wicket, but Charlie Dean onto that in a flash. Well, of course, 5 fielders there on the offside, but so far Amelia Kerr has had no problems escaping them, and that is a fine scoop delivery, a scoop shot, I should say, that goes all the way to fine leg for 4. also premeditated, moving her back leg towards the offside and then using the scoop to divert that ball over the wicketkeeper. And with no third man or fine leg, no protection, that's always going to be a force. So this is it's been a very productive last few overs for New Zealand. There are 2 balls left in this over. Connection not quite right, and that's just going to be a single down to square leg. Lindsay Smith doing the fielding there. Mechanics of that scoop shot. Now Izzy Gaze tries that shot, which is supposed to be her speciality, but doesn't make any contact. 10 runs off the over, and New Zealand end the power play on 44 for no loss. So a pretty good start this from New Zealand. A run rate of 7.33 as the scoreboard confirms. So this is the fun part of, following T20 cricket. When it comes to the number of overs left, number of balls left, you've got to do some arithmetic in your head. I know the scoreboard normally does that for you, but it's nice to sort of test yourself mentally to see if you can get it and get it quickly. Another reminder, of course, that Wimbledon will be starting this coming Monday on the 29th of June. Yannick Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz and company hoping to wow the devoted fans of the hallowed grass courts at SW17, Southwest London, of course. Still hope for the likes of Novak Djokovic to try and go a bit further, but with Djokovic, you feel that the end is not too long away. Certainly the greatest of all time, but his time is almost up, you. I do apologize for yawning. Been a bit of a tiring day so far, it has to be said. Of course, India will be playing a T20 cricket series against England not too long now. But of course, continuing the cricket theme, the men did also have a shock at the hands of Ireland yesterday. Some amazing bowling saw India succumb to a 34-run defeat. The Indian-born Jay Mundra and the South African-born Matthew Hollard, not the ex-England bowler Hollard, combined to take 5 wickets between them and sending India hurtling to a poor defeat. And it's out with one left-arm spinner, in with another. Sophie Eccleston, one of the leading wicket takers in this tournament. She's been brought on to try to break this partnership. As I said, a very tall bowler who brings the ball down from a height and definitely has a good arm. First delivery. And you can see there that with that height and aggression, bowling to Amelia Kerr, it leaves the batswoman with a little bit of doubt. They're not going to try to go down to her too much. And she's certainly increased her ranking to 4th in the world. And that is a fine shot from Amelia Kerr, but played all the way down to deep extra cover for a single. Eccleston obviously having some problems with her form and fitness over the past few months, but she's worked on that extensively. Izzy Gaze plays that to good wicket for another single. Interesting strategy, this, and it actually had come off Gaze's bat in the previous over, and that has to go down certainly as a missed catching opportunity for Amy Jones. I think it sort of went into her body, couldn't quite get her gloves on. The right-handed Amelia Kerr back on strike. Sophie Epperson bowling left arm around the wicket, and Amelia Kerr plays that all the way down to deep cover. That will be another single. So the run rate just decreasing a little bit to just under 7 and over. Not necessarily what New Zealand would want. They might possibly be hoping to go completely crazy in the last few overs. And the last delivery, a nice attempt at a reverse sweep, but the fielder at backward point was placed there for that reason. So 3 runs off the over. New Zealand are 47 for no loss. Now it's the captain, Charlie Dean, who replaces Danny Gibson. So spin from both ends. 74 wickets for the England captain. Right arm over the wicket. And Amelia Kerr plays that wonderfully. A slight shimmy down the track, and she smacks that all the way to long off for 4. And that brings up the New Zealand 50 from the 8th over. Amelia Kerr deciding that now's the time to start dancing down the track a bit. She played that very well indeed. And that puts her England counterpart under some pressure. That's played all the way down to deep mid-wicket. Alice Capsey doing the fielding, and that will be just the 2. But a reminder today that thanks to the Ireland vice-captain, Orla Prendergast, her nation secured a magnificent win over the West Indies at Bristol earlier today, which has given New Zealand a lifeline which Amelia Kerr's hell-bent on taking. She moves to 39 off 30. A dot ball there, so she wasn't quite able to add to that. Strike rate of exactly 130. And Amelia Kerr guiding that down to deep mid-wicket, but Danny Gibson there with the fielding. The confirmation, of course, both the West Indies and Sri Lanka are on 6 points, but both of them with negative run rates. Sri Lanka are out with a run rate of negative 0.72. So the Epperson there doing the fielding at mid-off. So no run there for Izzy Gaze. Last delivery of Charlie Dean's over. Conceded 7 so far. It's nicely played by Izzy Gaze down to long on for a single. 8 runs off the over. New Zealand are stable and comfortable, but not exactly piling on the runs. Amelia Kerr has literally been the star of the show so far with 40 off 31. Izzy Gaze has more often than not been a spectator. And of course, the first semi-final from the Oval, both of the semi-finals will be taking place at the Oval. Will be on the 30th of June, the end of this month, as Sophie Epperson comes back into the attack and Izzy Gaze plays that first ball to point, a reverse sweep to point. But this is good field placing from Charlie Dean, knowing where the batsman would like to score their runs. And second delivery is played back to Eccleston. Gets down brilliantly to field that. I wonder if she's hurt her finger there in the process. Third delivery. Left arm round the wicket, the right-handed Izzy Gaines. She dances down the track and plays that back over the bowler. Magnificent piece of fielding there from Alice Capsey, and that limits it to 2 runs. So she runs across from what looks like long off, dives and cuts that off brilliantly. And that saves Sophie Eccleston from being hit for a boundary. That was a fine shot there from Izzy Gaze, dancing down, playing that straight. The fielding was outstanding. And an appeal for the catch there, but Jackie Williams is not quite interested. Not too sure it came off the bat either. Amy Jones and Charlie Dean in discussion there. Are they going to review this? They had a wasted review, of course, against the West Indies. Pretty ill judged. And this is going to be a big gamble from the England captain. And the third umpire for today is from Pakistan, Salima Imtiaz. Now, if it does hit the batsman on her glove, then she could be out. But I think this is once again a pretty poor review. The point of impact there is that it does hit her on the elbow, her left elbow, and her elbow was holding the bat. And the third umpire there taking her time. So Imtiaz looking to find the point of impact, and it does hit the batswoman on her left arm. Pitching right side off. Certainly going over, and if they were appealing for an LBW, that is the definition of a wasted review then. So, oh, Charlie. Burning through reviews there. Two deliveries to go. And this time Izzy Gaze makes her pay once again. But once again, Alice Capsey doing some fine fielding. And in fact, that limits it to just the 1. Well, this is the 58 from 53 with Amelia Kirk contributing 40 of them. She faces the last ball, comes down the track, and that's played back beyond the bowler, straight to Alice Capsey at long off. At the end of the 9th over, New Zealand are 59 for no loss, and Amelia Kerr is still on strike on 41. I wouldn't call this necessarily a sedate start, but we're almost at the halfway point. New Zealand will be thinking they need some more runs. So now the big question is, do England continue with spin on both ends, or do they possibly bring Freya Kemp into the attack for a change of angle, maybe? And we have 4 people tuning in, so thank you all very much indeed. And I called it. It is Freya Kemp coming into the attack, replacing Charlie Dean, left arm over the wicket to the right-handed Amelia Kerr. And she tries to play that on the leg side, and it dropped short of Danny Gibson running in from deep mid-wicket. Freya Kemp, of course, a left-arm seamer who took 4 wickets against Sri Lanka in their opening game, including 3 in 1 over. She'll obviously be expected to perform the role of all-rounder along with Danny Gibson. And, of course, it was that big partnership from them that really gave them a huge platform against Ireland. And that is Lizzie Gaze on strike there. I'm not too sure if you would call that necessarily an inadvertent edge, but it does go to the vacant third man region for 4. Slip fielder wasn't going to cut that off. You can say she almost got a top edge on that, but third delivery, still over the wicket. Gaze plays that beyond the mid-on fielder, and that goes to the boundary. So it looks as though the seamers are being taken to the cleaners here. They're not bowling beamers or the seamers, but they're being taken to the cleaners. Once again, it's that mid-wicket, long-on area that's proving very profitable. And chance for a wicket here, but obviously played a bit too high, and Sophie Eccleston standing there at mid-off was not quite able to get that. It actually went above her, and I don't think she was able to run to get that back in time. That is another 2 runs to Izzy Gaze. Definitely had the height, and Eccleston actually tried to reach for that with her left hand, her bowling hand. Just couldn't get it. 2 deliveries to go. Freya Kemp still bowling left arm over the wickets. That's the delivery you want. You want to make sure you keep that line where the bowl is sort of pitching on middle and leg and moving towards off. You do not want to give the batswoman or batsman any chance. And it wouldn't be a bad idea, of course, if she had the courage to pitch the ball up a bit more, a bit further. Maybe she could get some late swing. You never know. Last delivery of the over. And that is high in the air. And that is caught by Alice Capsey at long on. So the last ball of the 10th over. New Zealand were doing quite well, but they've lost their first wicket. Izzy Gaze playing a supportive role to her captain, Amelia Kerr, but has ended up dismissed. You can see there that that was a slower ball, a sort of a left arm spinner slower ball, you could say. Gaze tried to play that a little bit too aggressively, only succeeded in skying that. You can just see how much that meant to Freya Kemp to take that wicket. So Izzy Gaze goes for 28 off 27. Decent supporting innings with 4 fours. Well, Argentina have lost a wicket. Now, the worst part about feeling a bit tired is that I do not want to run the risk of falling asleep. So I'm not going to give the impression that I'm tired and make it look unprofessional, so I've switched off the camera. And another reminder, of course, that we could possibly be having some halftime analysis, of course. midway through the match once New Zealand have batted. Had a good start, a run rate of exactly 7. This is the former captain, Sophie Devine, who's come out to join her skipper, Amelia Kerr, who's on 42 from 33. And there's Danny Gibson back into the attack. Right arm over the wicket. And that is another breakthrough which England wanted, and Amelia Kerr will be absolutely disgusted with herself. An opportunity to score what could potentially be a match-defining innings, trying to attempt the scoop over the wicketkeeper. She loses her wicket. Certainly premeditated, but you can see there that when she ended up trying to play the shot, she didn't really account for the late movement. Ball going down to Piccadilly, back down to Bakerloo. Those are, of course, train lines on the underground. 42 off 34 with 6 fours. But New Zealand have now lost wickets off consecutive balls. They are now 70 for 2 after 10.1 overs. So it's Izzy Sharp that's come in. Almost a reversal of roles, sending Devine before Sharp, but Sharp also proving her worth as a middle order batswoman. She is going to have to be very sharp with her play today. Maybe we'll have some Devine stroke play from Sophie. Not right now, though. Danny Gibson's second ball is sort of tapped all the way down to mid-off. Here's the wicket again. That late movement there from Danny Gibson, absolutely brilliant. Amelia Kerr not able to get into the right position, and you can see right now she is devastated. Oh, another one gone. Another one's gone. Another one's gone. Izzy Sharp, not very sharp, playing back onto the wicket. And England a cock-a-hoop. You can see here Danny Gibson not having the best first over, but in her second over, she's come back magnificently. That's 2 and 3. Sharp not really able to get to grips with that. Certainly trying to play that through either square leg, either point or covers, but failing quite miserably. And that's the second ball done for Izzy Sharp, leaving New Zealand on 70 for 3. These are the types of overs that can win you games if you are bowling. Brooke Halliday at the crease now, left-hander. Strike rate of just under 100, so she will need to improve on that. Her main priority now will be to avoid getting out to Danny Gibson, who has 2 wickets in 3. And her first shot is played all the way down to square leg. Dropped short of Lindsay Smith there, who's doing the fielding. Just a replay, though, of the previous delivery there. Slightly short of a slower ball, but Izzy Sharp not really able to connect with that and only succeeds in bottom edging that onto the wicket. Forlorn looking Izzy Sharp there, walking off. Sophie Devine plays her first ball down to deep square leg for a single. Reminder of the first wickets, the wickets to fall. Izzy Gaze holding out to Alice Capsey at long on, and nearly occur with Izzy Sharp being bowled by Danny Gibson from the first and third balls of this over. Nicely played down to mid-wicket there by Brooke Halliday. They want a second, but can they get back in time? Yes, they do. So, 4 runs and a wicket off the over. New Zealand are 74 for 3 after 11. So, run rate. Just under 7. Certainly a good start by New Zealand, but England have reined them back in quite superbly. Run rate of less than 7. It's going to be tough to see New Zealand posting a very competitive total. Could very well be that if England do what Ireland did against the West Indies and got their catching and fielding spot on and their bowling very good, they could end up winning something for sure. Charlie Dean back into the attack. Her first delivery is back at her. Quite well fielded, you could say. Charlie Dean to Sophie Devine. Devine plays that to fine leg. Have they run for 2? No, they're settling for a 1. Huge Hyundai 4-wheeled car is what might be awarded to the player of the tournament, I believe. Dean now going around the wicket, right arm to the left-handed Halliday. And all Halliday can do is cut that down to backward point. It's a dot ball. That's a fine shot there from Brooke Halliday. All the way down to mid-on for 4. It's a single played down to, you could say, but say the line between cover and extra cover. Well, Sophie Devine will be hoping to play more of the sweep, having doubled her use of that from the previous year, facing the last ball of Charlie Dean's second over. And not able to get that away, so that will be a dot ball. 6 off the over. And after 12 overs, New Zealand are 80 for 3. And the run rate is 7.66 and over. No, not 7.66. 6.66. Brain's a bit fried today. Not an excuse. Power through, Thangadore. Power through. New Zealand, of course, opting to bat first on winning the toss, hoping that they could put themselves in position to get a very good total, but so far they're being checked. And of course, the secrets of Ireland's fine win today were their outstanding catching and fielding, which has markedly improved, of course, as we see Danny Gibson coming back into the attack and Brooke Halliday playing that all the way down to mid-wicket for a single. Not a single, a double, I should say. But Ireland got their fielding and their catching spot on, and they bowled magnificently to restrict West Indies to a paltry 128. And you could tell that once Paula Prendergast got going and continued to play superbly on both sides of the wicket, there was really only ever going to be one of us. Danny Gibson, right arm over the wicket to the left-handed Brooke Halliday, who plays that down to, you could say, deep mid-wicket there for a single, or just mid-wicket. So Sophie Eccleston there doing the field. And of course, another reminder, if you would like to vote for your ICC player of the match, you can go to t20worldcup.com/POTM. And for the pressure play of the day, same website, but it's /POTD. Sophie Devine facing Danny Gibson now. And that's not even a sweep, that's a fine shot there, played for two, down to square leg. Could have gone for the boundary, but some excellent fielding from both Sophia Dunkley and Danny White-Hodge means that will only be 2 runs. So Gibson bowling her third over in succession. Surprisingly, not using spin very much, but Gibson's now, of course, taken 2 of the 3 New Zealand wickets to fall. And you've got to say that that's a poor delivery there, drifting down leg, and Sophie Devine having no hesitation, playing that off the back foot down to fine leg for 4. And that is, of course, an area where batswomen have found a lot of joy in this tournament. Gibson now with 2 balls left. That is a fine cut there down to deep cover. That will just be a single. And that brings Brooke Halliday back on strike to face the final ball of the over. Ebony Rainford Brent, of course, having the honour of walking out with the trophy at the Oval. Last delivery of Danny Gibson's third over. Right arm over the wicket. And that's signalled a wide by Jacqueline Williams, and that goes all the way down to the boundary for 4. These are needless runs to concede from England's point of view, because that brings New Zealand run rate now back above 7. And that's a risk, of course. If you're bowling right arm over the wicket to a left-hander, you cannot let yourself drift down the leg. You are asking for trouble. Signal is 4 wide, so that's 4 runs plus the wide. Somewhat better, forcing her to play off the bat, but that is a single all the way down to fine leg. And after 13 overs, 16 from that, fine over from New Zealand's perspective. And 96 for 3. Still like a few more runs, obviously, to bring about a competitive total. Although you probably would back England to chase it down. They do enjoy chasing whenever they can. Charlie Dean back into the attack. Right arm Round the wicket to the left-handed Brooke Halliday. Fine cut shot, but that goes straight to the point fielder. And we see Casey Martin, the former New Zealand international, alongside Isha Gua and Ebony Rainford Brent in the commentary box. Such a shame you can't hear what they say. An attempted reverse sweep there from Brooke Halliday. Very nicely played, and that goes all the way down to the third man boundary for 4. And that brings up New Zealand's 100 in the 14th over. This could, of course, potentially be the final match for Sophie Devine, Susie Bates, and Leah Tahuhu, depending, of course, on the outcome of this match. Nicely placed reverse sweep there from Halliday. And Dunkley was never going to have a chance at that. But is that a return catch? No, it isn't. Probably bounced a bit before it was caught there by Charlie Dean, but fantastic piece of fielding there from the England captain. Still round the wicket to Halliday. And Halliday plays that down to mid-on there for a single, and a fine piece of fielding from Sophie Eccleston. Hits the wicket, but Halliday was home safely. Did hit the stumps and go a bit further, but the batsmen weren't going to take any risk just for an overthrow. And that is a divine shot there from Sophie. Dean going back over the wickets of the former New Zealand captain, who dances down the track and smites that all the way over long on for a big 6. Might be New Zealand's first 6 of the innings, and what a time to score it. I've got to say that's a poor delivery there from Charlie Dean. That was drifting down leg. Sophie knew exactly what she had to do, and she goes again. Another huge shot. This time over deep mid-wicket for 6. And that ends the over there from Charlie Dean. Quite expensive. 17 runs from it. We now go into the last 6 overs where New Zealand might feel confident of actually going all out. Of course, the best part of that particular over is that it means that New Zealand's run rate has now increased to slightly above 8 and over. So they will, of course, now be looking mainly through Devine, but certainly through Halliday as well, to try and increase that total and get it to possibly 180 or 190, which would be very, very difficult to chase. And of course, when England set West Indies that target at Lords, the West Indies ended up not having enough overs, lost wickets at the wrong time. So New Zealand are going to be hoping that they will set a big enough target. Just a confirmation that whoever qualifies, of course, alongside England will do so as runners-up of Group B. And in all likelihood, they will play Australia, who, of course, are playing India tomorrow. Very early hours of Sunday afternoon. So that's going to be a huge cracker if you enjoy your cricket. India and Australia playing for Australia, obviously trying to increase their perfect record, but India also playing knowing that they need a win to make the semi-finals. If they lose, they could end up going home. course, it won't be long now before the action starts in the FIFA World Cup, and current run rate with Sophie Eccleston coming back into the attack. They should get 161 comfortably, but they will be looking to get at least 175 or even 180, and they will have to literally turn on the afterburners. It will be Sophie Eccleston coming into the attack. Left arm spin from over the wicket to the left-handed Brooke Halliday. And Halliday once again going for a reverse sweep, but completely missing it. And quite lucky not to get bowled, it has to be said. And sort of drifting down leg there, but Halliday did play it back. They were possibly thinking about an LBW shout, but that might have drifted a bit too far. So a single down to short fine leg, and that brings Sophie Devine on strike, and so Sophie Eccleston goes around the wicket. Sophie to Sophie, and another Devine shot there from the former New Zealand captain. Sweeping that over square leg for 6. Eccleston is now back under pressure. What a fine innings this is proving to be from Sophie Devine, and what could potentially be her final match before retirement. Getting down on one leg and using those powerful arms of hers to smite that over square leg. This time around, not quite able to get either the height or the distance on that. That goes all the way down to mid-on for a single, but Brooke Halliday and Sophie Devine, that 6, of course, bringing up the 50 partnership. 50 from 25, strike rate of 200. Magnificent stuff. Eccleston over the wicket to Halliday, who's happy to take a single and maybe keep the strike. She doesn't keep the strike, but she gives it back to Sophie Devine for the final ball of the over. It was, of course, played down to mid-wicket. And this time, no run there. That is, of course, a dot ball. Not too sure whether they're trying to appeal for something there. And Charlie Dean's got to be careful. She's wasted one review already. I'm not sure she would want to review another. In fact, she doesn't review. So, the end of the 15th over. New Zealand, 10 runs from it, 123 for 3. So basically, Sophie Devine has come in and continued the good work as Lauren Bell comes back into the attack, bowling right arm round the wicket to left-handed Halliday. That is very well fielded down there at deep mid-wicket. Freya Kemp there doing some good work. Fine left-handed sweep. That was actually more towards square leg than deep mid-wicket. Freya Kemp covering that excellently well. Second delivery, once again, round the wicket to the left-hander. And that is played all the way down to cover, and we could have a run out here. Brilliant piece of fielding, and Gayatri Venugopalan confirming that that is indeed out. So Brooke Halliday, who was playing a brilliant supporting role and certainly keeping the scoreboard ticking, playing that down to extra cover. Captain Charlie Dean with the throw, and Halliday is short. Brilliant, brilliant piece of fielding, it has to be said. So 124. Should be 125 for 4, I think. Well, it does seem to me that they were 122 at the end of the previous over, so it makes sense that they are now 124 for 4. I might have gotten my sums wrong there, but certainly no mistake about this one. 124 for 4 after 15.2 overs. Brooke Halliday run out for 20 off 17, and that brings Maddie Green to the crease, coming at number 6. So her job will definitely be to try and keep the scoreboard ticking, providing support to Sophie Devine. Bell now going back over the wicket, and that was going wide, but I'm not even sure why Devine should have been back on strike there, because, well, I mean, they had in fact crossed. So it is Devine who was on strike and who well, in fact, I tell you what, regardless of the confusion, there is another wicket. Lauren Bell has managed to get the former New Zealand captain out LBW, but this will be reviewed. And to me, I don't think that's out. I think that pitched a little bit too far outside the line of off stump to be considered out. Could definitely been going down. Going down leg. Well, certainly the Pakistani third umpire will, Salima Imtiaz there, seeing that there is no gap there between bat and pad. So Sophie Devine could potentially be in trouble. It actually could very well be going on to hit the stumps, but the biggest concern is where that was pitching. And if that was pitching a bit too far outside off stump, then there is no way that... well, actually, that was pitching just more or less in line. And so that is another wicket. Sophie Devine did, in fact, cross when Halliday was run out, so she did take 2 runs off the next ball. But ball after that, 3 sixes in her 30 off 14, a strike rate of 214. But she's out. New Zealand are in a bit of a spot of bother. Tragedy is they were threatening to really post a big total. But now, out with one former captain, in with another. Suzie Bates. Susie will need to play a bit of a doozy. With her stroke play, she can't be choosing. As for me, I'm so tired, I'm almost woozing. All right, enough's enough. As I said, Suzie Bates is in. New Zealand's run rate is just over 8 now, so they could still end up with 160 and maybe back themselves to defend that, but this could very well, of course, be Suzie Bates's final T20 international, and her first ball is played down to backward point for a single. She's not going to end up with 5,000 T20 international runs. What she does will be quite important. You can see there, Sophie Devine, premeditated, had gone across and sort of exposed that leg stump of hers, and that was probably her undoing there. Maddie Green, her first ball is sent all the way down to deep mid-wicket for a single, so she will retain the strike. And after 16 overs, New Zealand are 128 for 5 at exactly 8 and over. Sophie Bates is still the highest T20 international run scorer with now 4,740, but Smriti Mandhana is 240 runs behind her, and you think that she will not only overhaul that total, but get to the magic 5,000 very, very soon. Lindsay Smith coming back in to bowl her final over, the 17th over. Left arm around the wicket to the right-handed Maddie Green. Green shuffles onto the back foot and plays that all the way down to mid-wicket for a single. Second delivery, bowling to Susie Bates now. Bates comes down the track, but pops it in the air and it drops just short of the cover fielder. Charlie Dean not able to get there in time. So Susie needs to be a bit careful. Keeping the scoreboard ticking, playing that down to mid-wicket and deciding against the second run. So the impact, of course, of those 2 wickets cannot be understated. Susie isn't exactly a very powerful hitter as Maddie Green plays that down to mid-wicket. So they're probably going to have to hope that they can get to anywhere between 160 or 170. It means that they're going to have to bowl really well to make sure they get to a good total. And once again, Susie Bates playing that down to mid-wicket. Almost a flick there off the hips of hers. 4 singles from the over. Last delivery of Lindsay Smith's over. And that is a premeditated sweep. Drops just short of Freya Kemp. And could the batsman run for a second? No, they decide not to. So Maddie Green will retain strike for the next over. And that is, of course, the end of Lindsay Smith's bowling. No wickets, but she's conceded only 26 runs at 6.5 and over. Quite economical. New Zealand, 133 for 5 after 17 overs. Freya Kemp there running in from deep square leg. Speaking of Freya Kemp, she now comes back into the attack, hoping to get another wicket in her second over. And, that also drops just short of Sophia Dunkley at short fine leg. And Maddie Green there with a lucky escape. The second consecutive lucky escape, must be said. Yeah. With that drop, I think it did drop short, but Sophia Dunkley is certainly feeling the pain on her fingers, and I think she's been sent back to try and protect the boundary. Or is she getting some treatment, perhaps? And she is temporarily off the field now, so it looks as though it's Izzy Wong who's coming onto the field to take her place for the time being. Susie Bates on strike now. Left arm over the wicket. It's the right-handed Bates who shuffles across to the offside and plays that all the way down to deep mid-wicket just for a single. Singles aren't going to do it for New Zealand. They need boundaries. That's another single from Maddie Green all the way down to square leg again. Scoreboard continuing to tick. So far in this final phase, it's Lauren Bell who's been the standout performer. But England are 4 minutes behind, and they've taken quite a few liberties with their bowling. And Susie Bates there getting down on one leg and sweeping that all the way to fine leg for 4. And that is a very useful boundary indeed, it has to be said. New Zealand need all the runs they can get. Freya Kemp not quite getting her line right. And Susie Bates playing that very well indeed, well over the short, fine leg fielder's head. No one's going to get that. This time an attempted reverse sweep. And she plays that very well indeed. Does that run down to the boundary? Yes, it does. So 2 consecutive boundaries for the former New Zealand captain. She's playing another fine hand here. It was her innings of 19, ending the innings with a 6, that helped make the difference between New Zealand and Ireland that day. And of course, it was she who bowled that final over, restricting Ireland and preventing them from securing what would have been a well-deserved win. Last delivery of Freya Kemp's over. What can she do? Well, I think that's sort of a 1 bounce 4, just bounced inside the rope. Gayatri Venugopalan, they're signaling that. So that's 3 consecutive 4s off Freya Kemp from Susie Bates. Very, very, very much needed runs there. 15 from the over takes New Zealand to 148 for 5. After 18 overs. The run rate, crucially, is now back over 8. So Sophie Eccleston will be bowling her final over. Round the wickets, the right-handed Maddie Green. She's going to want to try and take a wicket or 2, definitely. Bowled very well. No wickets for 15 runs. And the first delivery is played all the way safely down to mid-off for a single. Charlie Dean cutting it off there. Fantastic figures, it has to be said. Second delivery is sort of whipped off her legs by Susie Bates. But that goes all the way to deep mid-wicket just for 1. And that brings up the 150 for New Zealand in the 19th over. So they are going to look to get at least 160, and they are going to have to bowl exceptionally well. And that is Susie Bates' 1,000th T20 international run in England. So fine accolade for her. And that is played back beyond the bowler, but it will be cut off by Alice Capsey at long on, so no more than a single. But of course, that brings Susie Bates back on strike. That's a fine delivery there, having Bates in all sorts of trouble, and she's happy to sort of... Is that going to be signaling the leg by? Not too sure, but Charlie Dean once again opting for a review. Well, again, this is going to be interesting because we had a review involvement which got rid of Sophie Devine earlier. I'm really not sure that that's going on to hit leg stump. And of course, if it's the trajectory in which it's going, it could very well end up being the umpire's fault. Outer edge, of course, being applied here, and there is, of course, a huge gap between bat and pad. It is, of course, the umpire's call, and that is, of course, confirmed not out. So not exactly a lost review, but with the umpire's call, it does go either way, and the umpire ends up normally sticking to her decision. And it is, of course, a leg by from that ball, bringing Maddie Green back on strike. Ooh, and that would have been a magnificent catch there had that been taken. Maddie Green moving to the offside and trying to sweep that. It does, in fact, go down to fine leg for boundary, but there was, of course, a fielder running in at short fine leg. Lauren Bell. Oh, that would have been a fine, fine one-handed catch there. Sophie Eccleston knows just how close that was. So no wickets for Eccleston so far. Will she have better luck on her last ball? No, that is hit towards cow corner. And that'll be a couple. And Eccleston ends with figures of 0 for 24. Ten runs from the over. $158.5 with 1 over remaining. Bates facing the last over from Lauren Bell. Right arm over the wicket, and Bates is able to sort of guide that to mid-wicket. That will only be a single. So it's not too sure that New Zealand will get up to 170. Anything above 160 should potentially be competitive, but New Zealand are really going to have to bowl very, very well. It's nicely played there by Maddie Green to square leg, but only for a single. That brings up the 160. It's a little slower ball there, but it's trying to reverse sweep there from Lauren Bell's delivery over the wicket, but bounces high over her and she doesn't get the connection. 3 balls left. And 3 balls bowled. And certainly trying to play the reverse sweep there, but not getting the connection and looking almost a bit clumsy as she fell to the floor. What can Susie Bates do in these final 3 balls? She cuts that very nicely to the backward point area, and that will be a single, bringing Maddie Green on strike. Two balls left, and England have been very slow in their over rate, so they are going to have to really push on. And Maddie Green plays that all the way down to mid-wicket, and they decide to run back for the second, and they get there comfortably enough. That's 5 runs off the over so far with 1 ball to go. And I think given the threat of possibly going to 180 or 190 when Amelia Kerr and Sophie Devine were batting, separately, of course, I think England will be very satisfied. England will be satisfied with the work they've done to restrict New Zealand to. And they ran for it. I don't know if they got back in time. I could very well be out. It's a brilliant throw there. Bates is, in fact, just short of her crease. So I don't think that run's going to count. That will actually be another wicket. Amy Jones there doing some brilliant work. And the innings ends on 163 for 6 with Bates once again scoring 19. These could be her final runs as a New Zealand international cricket. So, as it stands, New Zealand have limped in the end, it has to be said, to 163 for 6. They were threatening to have a bigger total, but wickets lost at the wrong time never really helped them. And now that means that England will need exactly 164 runs to win from 20 overs at the rate of 8.2 and over. And there will, of course, be some calculations done with regard to how many balls can New Zealand take, can accept, rather, how many balls they can bowl before they can claim a victory by run rate. Because if they lose, they are going to have to make sure that they don't lose in such a way that their run rate gets badly affected. If, for example, they can take this to the last over, or maybe the 18th or 19th, they should potentially have enough to win this. I mean, not win per se, but qualify for the semi-finals by virtue of their net run rate. Sophie Devine now talking to the analysts. Okay, so Devine, obviously one of the stars of the innings. Of course, Amelia Kerr top scoring with 42 at the top of the order, but it was Sophie's Devine innings of 30 or 14 that gave New Zealand a great deal of momentum. 3 big sixes, of course, and basically talking about how she was quite happy with the way she hit, although she probably got a little bit too much under it. And you could see there that the loss of Kerr and Sharp threatened to set them back, but that partnership of 54 off 30 between Halliday and Devine really gave New Zealand a great deal of confidence before Halliday was run out. And as for the bowlers, well, 3 of them were wonderfully economical. Eccleston and Bell going for 6 each, and fine recovery from Bell, of course. Smith going for 6.5. Gibson, Dean, and Kemp a little bit expensive, but I think they'll be very happy with the job that they did, really preventing New Zealand from getting any real momentum to take them to a very big total. Still no comments as such, but I am glad to have some people watching with me. And in the final 3 overs, it was Bates and Green who sort of took New Zealand to the 160 landmark. 30 from those final 3 overs at 10 and over. Very, very useful indeed. Could they make the difference? We see the burly and unmistakable Matthew Hayden there. Looks as though he's put on a few pounds, maybe. Devastating opening batsman in his day for Australia. And of course, a batsman with a very special love for the city of Chennai in India, where I currently live. I'm not a big fan of the Chennai Super Kings, of course, where he played in the IPL, but he certainly has a huge love affair with the city and, of course, the Chidambaram Stadium in Chepauk in the north of the city. New Zealand will probably be kicking themselves if they couldn't get to the 180 mark that they would have wanted. But they also noted, of course, as Sophie Devine did, that the change of pace worked well for England, so New Zealand are going to have to try the same thing. And you would expect that Susie Bates will have a role to play as death overs bowler. She certainly did that to pretty good effect against Ireland, as New Zealand, it has to be said, saved their campaign. Yeah, England opting to use the roller. Not too sure if that's necessarily going to make much of a difference on this oval pitch. Once again, the area behind square certainly seen as a very fruitful area for New Zealand to have scored their runs so far. And if they're smart, they're going to have to make sure that they prevent England from scoring the same. And you can see that Susie Bates had walked across and left her leg stump open. You can see that 41% of New Zealand's boundaries were literally in that area between square leg and fine leg, backward square leg. So another reminder, New Zealand won the toss, opted to bat first. They rocked up 163 for 6 from their 20 overs. So England need 164 from their 20 overs at the rate of 8 points. And we won't be long now. We will, of course, be back with England's chase. I will, of course, just be taking a slight break and be away from the keyboard, but I will be back in a minute or so. Of course, if there's anyone who wants to join in I will, of course, be mindful of that. I think a few of our friends already have the StreamYard link, so if they're willing to join me for a little mid-innings chat, or a mid-game chat, rather, let me be having you. And of course, I am back at the keyboard to let you know that actually we aren't going to have any action right now from the World Cup. That's going to be actually another couple of hours' time. But of course, we are starting with action from Group L, sort of going backwards a little bit. It'll be Croatia against Ghana, with Croatia needing to win to secure second place in the group. They certainly will not want to have an ignominious early stage exit like they did at Euro 2024. Not a great way for Luka Modric to end his career after having become the fourth, I should say, rather, to earn 200 caps for his country. Ghana, of course, beat Panama, drew against England, so they know that if they stay unbeaten and they draw against Croatia, they will qualify as group runners-up. And of course, one of the more interesting scenarios to try and help Scotland go through would be for Ghana to beat Croatia by 3 goals at the very least, for Uzbekistan and the Democratic Republic of Congo to either draw or for Uzbekistan to win, and for Austria to beat Algeria by 2 goals. But I think it's fair to say that even the most diehard of Scotland fans know that their tournament is long over. And of course, England are going to be playing Panama. All the talk, of course, is that Reece James is out with a hamstring injury. And there could very well be some rotation with Jarell Quansah coming into the side at right back and Nico O'Reilly coming back in at left back, replacing Jed Spence. Declan Rice will be rested, so it'll be it'll be Elliot Anderson and Jude Bellingham in the double midfield pivot, with Morgan Rogers coming into the team, playing in the 10. Saka on the right, Rashford on the left, Kane on his own up front. And so this will be seen as an attempt for Thomas Tuchel to try and be a little bit more open, maybe unleashing Morgan Rogers. But anyway, as I said, we are almost back on the way with play from the Oval. And just another reminder, this is continued coverage of the T20 Women's Cricket World Cup. England versus New Zealand live from the Oval in London. And of course, New Zealand have to win to make sure that they will reach the semi-finals, but they will be able to lose by a certain margin or within a certain number of balls without it affecting their run rate. Another reminder, of course, that earlier today at Bristol, Ireland shocked the West Indies, winning by 6 wickets with 11 balls remaining. All Prendergast with a brilliant player of the match performance, 63 off 44, anchoring Ireland's chase brilliantly before the lower order batswomen finished off the job. So that means that New Zealand's destiny is in their hands. They, of course, won the toss and chose to bat, scoring 63 for 6 after 20 overs, which means that England need exactly 164 from 20 overs at exactly 8.2 and over. And it is, of course, Danny White-Hodge and Amy Jones who are just waiting to be given the signal to come out to play. and very soon we will be underway. So thankfully, there is no concurrent World Cup action taking place at the same time from the US. So we'll be focusing completely on the cricket. No live score updates from across the pond. It's remarkable about how Susie Bates has sort of found her way back into the team. Had been dropped for the previous 2 games, but her replacements, quite frankly, failed at the top of the order. Certainly won't be long now before the inning starts. Here's Amy Jones, who will be facing the first ball. She needs another 166 runs in this tournament to herself get to 2,000 T20 international runs. Danny White-Hodge, of course, crossing the 3,500 landmark with her innings against the West Indies. It's Bree Illing who will be opening the bowling. Left arm seamer, quite inexperienced. Economy rate of 6.1, which should be very useful indeed. And we already have a comment. All good, Shoosh. Happy to be doing it. And thank you for joining in with the live coverage. That's all right. You can save your comments until the end if you want. First ball, left arm over the wicket to the right-handed Amy Jones. And Amy Jones plays that down to square leg. That will just be a single. You see Bree Illing there. Not necessarily a bowler of express pace, but I think she focuses a lot more on line and length. Second delivery. And it was wide, but coming back into Danny White-Hodge, hoping to play that down to fine leg, but the short fine leg fielder blocks that. Top ball. Third delivery. And White-Hodge has been probably England's most informed batsman, hoping to guide that to the third man region, but Amelia Kerr getting her field placing spot on. Just another reminder, it's Jacqueline Williams and Gayatri Venugopalan who are the umpires today. That might be called a wide, and that actually ends up going off Izzy Gazer's glove for 4 wides. Well, you can see there, really struggling to get the line right. Maybe White-Hodge might have been complaining that she did in fact get glove on that, but maybe not. And that's the line you want to bowl. Left arm seamer bowling over the wicket to the right-hander. Bring it down and make sure it goes across and goes to the wicket keeper. No room for the batswoman to play any kind of shot. Pitching it on middle and off. Staying on off. That's the perfect line. Danny White-Hodge there playing that to You could say silly mid-wicket if you like. Another single. Last ball of the over. Still left arm over the wicket, this time to Amy Jones. It's a good line, but Amy Jones is able to play that well all the way down to backward square leg. They should be able to run for 2, but in the end, they settle for 1 instead. So, 8 runs off the over. England are 8 for no loss with 19 overs remaining. We need another 156 runs. Well, I'm not too sure. They could chase it quite easily, but they are going to have to make sure they tackle the New Zealand bowlers. And it is Jessica Kerr, the New Zealand captain's elder sister, who will be coming in. Fingers along the seam, right arm seen from over the wicket to the right hand of Amy Jones. And Jones has no problems playing that all the way to mid-wicket for a single. You could say cow corner, maybe. "39 wickets for Jess. Only rate of 6.7. And it's over the wicket to the right-handed White Hodge. And that is a wonderful cut shot there from White Hodge. Played square. Split the field. And those are very welcome runs as far as England are concerned. So as I've said, I'm actually going to share the table with you, but cracking shot that from Danny White Hodge. You could say that was almost lofted drive. I don't know if that was necessarily a back foot drive, but it definitely went straight and full house. It actually went all the way along square. That's the dot ball of the 5th delivery of the over. Confirmation, of course, that England have already qualified. And New Zealand could, if they win, of course, they will improve their run rate, definitely make it positive. But they're up against it, against this England team. Left arm over the wicket to the right-handed Amy Jones. So there's Bree back into the attack. Continuing her spell. Left arm over the wicket to Amy Jones. And Amy Jones rocks onto her back foot and guides that all the way down to the deep mid-wicket boundary for 4. She's on her way. That's a fine shot there from Amy Jones. Boundary all the way to point. No fielder getting that. Third delivery. Drop forward. Looks as though, as with the England fielders, the New Zealanders are trying to take the gamble of taking wickets. Win predictor, of course, 2-1 probability for England to win. Odds have been upset before. Most certainly earlier today. Another cracking shot there from Amy Jones. So after 3 overs, New Zealand are 31 for no loss. And I'm really sorry for not changing it in time. Certainly going hammer and tongs in the last 2 overs with England, I should say. Brilliantly fielded there down at Watchalong. Nelsie Patel, of course, is you could say a kind of a fastish spinner, bowling with an almost medium pace-like action. And that's a single there from Danny White-Hodge, which brings Amy Jones back on strike. Nelsie Patel, of course, born in Gujarat in India, but who ended up moving to New Zealand and is now a big part of the White Ferns T20 team. Jones back on strike. England, 34 for no loss after 3.2. This has been a fine start for England. Haven't lost a wicket, and that is played back beyond the bowler. But a single down to mid-on. I have to change this as well. Yeah, the worst part about rain falling is that it plays havoc with my TV signal, so gonna have to keep informing you of the score as and when it's happening, and hopefully it seems to be drop ball there, last ball, but yeah, well, I'm afraid it looks as though the signal has completely mucked up my has been completely mucked up due to the rain. So in the meantime, of course, I will show you the table to just let you know what we're dealing with regard to the point standings. And stand to the stage. And this is, of course, the table. So as things stand, the England women are already qualified. They have a net run rate of 2.342. The West Indies, of course, lost today, and the impact of that loss is that their net run rate has now gone slightly negative, which means that if New Zealand win, they increase their net run rate as well, and they end up leapfrogging the West Indies into second and qualifying for the semis. New Zealand can also lose, provided that they are able to bat out a certain number of overs. Sri Lanka women have 6 points, but they are out of contention because their net run rate is quite poor. And Scotland and Ireland exit the tournament with 1 win each. Ireland's win coming wonderfully earlier today, and they very nearly beat New Zealand as well. So there is a big future for these associate teams in international cricket. And of course, in Group 1, Australia comfortably through. India and South Africa locked in a two-way tie for the second semi-final spot. Bangladesh are on 4 points, but their net run rate should mean that they end up not going through. And the signal is back, so I'm going to, of course, change the scorecard. England are now 36 for no loss with 16 overs remaining. They need another 128 more runs. And it is the veteran Leah Tahuhu who replaces Bree Illing. Right arm over the wicket. And England, in fact, I should actually mention, did in fact lose a wicket. So I am going to have to, change the scoreboard there. But once again, the signal is completely mucking everything up. Yeah, it was the last ball of Patel's over, and it was mistimed to mid-off, and Patel picked up the wicket, shimmying down the track, looking to go up and over the fielder, but with no timing, loses the shape, and Captain Mealy Kerr picked up that catch. So that, of course, brings Sophia Dunkley in. Danny White-Hodge taking a single off the first ball, and Dunkley taking second off the second one. Both singles on the offside. White-Hodge playing that to cover and Dunkley playing that to deep point. And so the impact, of course, of that of Amy Jones' wicket is that England are now going to have to start playing very carefully indeed. I do, of course, regret the circumstances. The rain is, of course, playing havoc with everything. Whenever there is excessive rain on my side, it affects the TV signal. So there's also no way to actually watch this online. So I'm going to have to provide you with Cricinfo updates until further notice. But after a dot ball, White Hodge has just smacked a boundary off Tahuhu, and we will find out details about that. And those are, of course, very important runs indeed. Nancy Patel, of course, with the important wicket of Amy Jones. And there's the signal back. And another shot there, which goes all the way down to deep cover. Another single, and that takes White Hodge to 20 off 15. So she is, of course, the leading run scorer in this tournament. 5 ahead of Darcy Carter, who has been one of Scotland's bright lights in this tournament. Paula Prendergast third on 181. But with the top 4, with 4 of the top 5 from teams that are already eliminated, you would think that White Hodge will definitely add more to the tally. And a fine delivery from Tahuhu to end it. Sophia Dunkley being a bit circumspect. 7 runs off the over, and that takes England to 43 for 1. With 15 overs remaining. Need another 121 more runs. Of course, when you take a look at the score comparison, England are now comfortably ahead, but they have lost another wicket. And now it's Sophie Devine who's come in for the last over of the power play. Once again, no more than 2 fielders are allowed outside the 25-yard circle. Right arm medium pace, bowling over to the right-handed Danny White Hodge. And that is a fine shot, which just evades the backward point fielder. And that goes all the way to deep backward point boundary. That'll be 4. White Hodge certainly seeing the ball almost like a football, you could say. And once again, the signal gets interrupted with the rainfall. Thank God for Cricinfo. I can actually hear the rain falling. Ridiculous. $130 wickets for Sophie Devine. The single, of course, brings Dunkley on strike. And what does she do? Well, Dunkley crashes that through point, and that's going to be another boundary. Sophie Devine being taken to the cleaners at the moment. Not quite bowling in the right areas. And I'll just be back in a minute. Well, this isn't really good news for New Zealand if they aren't able to take another wicket. And Sophia Dunkley there, moving to the offside, getting down on one leg. Sweeping that over Leah Tahuhu at short, fine leg. And that is another fine boundary. So 13 runs off the over so far, proving to be quite expensive. And I think it could very well be that with these 2 batswomen in fine form, England should be able to build a potentially match-winning partnership. A potential match-winning partnership, I should say. And if there's a boundary off this final ball, that will take the run rate to exactly 10, but instead it's a single. So at the end of the 6th over, the run rate is 9.5 because England are 57 for 1. We need another 107 more runs. I think it's fair to say that the longer these two batsmen stay at the crease, the less likely it will be that New Zealand can get anything out of it. It could very well be that New Zealand might end up conceding this target in very few overs. And that will, of course, adversely affect their net run rate. And you can see it's a sign of how serious England were about putting up a good performance that they went in with an unchanged team. So obviously Captain Nat Skipper-Brunt isn't playing, neither is Izzy Wong. The other left-arm seamer, 14 Coleman, is also not playing. And Lauren Filer has also not been picked. Once again, the signal has completely been mucked up, but I can tell you that it will be Amelia Kerr who will be coming on to bowl the first over from the power play, after the power play. And I can tell you that she's bowling to Sophia Dunkley, and thanks to Cricinfo, that first ball has now gone for a boundary, and we will find out the details of that shot. So once again, my sincerest apologies. The rain is literally mucking up my viewing of the game. The win probability has increased to 70% for England as opposed to 30% for New Zealand. Just don't think the New Zealand bowlers have been quite able to get the line right. Yeah, the first ball tossed up outside the off, but a little bit too full. And that enables Sophia Dunkley to stretch forward and launch that straight through the covers. Leg break. So she does end up bowling a couple of dot balls, but then concedes 4 runs off the 4th ball. So, you know, Amelia Kerr does have a knack of picking up some pretty good wickets. The only problem is it does look as though she gets the length wrong at times. And I've always said that when it comes to leg spin bowling, you've got to make sure that you get the length absolutely spot on. Third ball was, of course, floated on the off stump and patted back to the bowler. As was the second, which was same thing. But then a little bit of width, and the fourth ball was played through the covers, followed by 2 dot balls to end everything. So with those 8 runs, that takes England's total to 65 for 1 after 7, with 13 overs remaining. The significance of that, of course, is that England's target, necessary runs needed, has now gone under 100. Yeah, fifth delivery and the sixth delivery were both defended. A thick inside edge off the fifth one, but no real danger. And the longer this partnership continues, you can just feel that New Zealand's chances are further slipping away. So the West Indies will probably end up getting into the semi-finals. I actually should stand corrected because West Indies and Sri Lanka were both on 6 points. New Zealand were on 4. So they had to, of course, beat England to make the semi-finals. No room for anything else. And it looks as though it might be raining a bit at the Oval anyway, so the players have actually just gone off after the 7th over. But they are, in fact, saying that the rain has eased up a little bit. The covers are still on. And just a recap, of course, of New Zealand's innings. Basically, it was a question of Amelia Kerr providing them that brilliant start, but not really able to capitalize by going on to hit a half century. And then Sophie Devine, of course, coming in with 3 big sixes as well. But apart from Amelia Kerr and Devine, Izzy Gaze did chip in with 28 off 27, and of course there was 20 from 17 from Brooke Halliday. Maddie Green and Susie Bates adding a few near the end before Bates was run out on the last ball of the innings. And while the signal has now come back on my television screen, I can tell you that the covers are on. It will remain to be seen whether any overs will be deducted. But of course, England did take quite a bit of time bowling their overs. So, another reminder. England against New Zealand. We are currently at a rain delay. New Zealand must beat already qualified England to make the semi-finals. If they beat them, their run rate remains positive, and they go through. No room for error. They cannot afford to lose, so I stand corrected on that. My sincerest apologies. And you can see there's some shots of the England dressing room. That's Gibber Brunt sitting on a sofa there with her left calf in a sort of sleeve that is meant to improve circulation. And then highlights, of course, of England's first 7 overs. They've scored 65, run rate comfortably over 9 and over. Danny White-Hodge there scoring runs through her favourite area, the covers. Amy Jones mistiming Nancy Patel to Amelia Kurt mid-off, but then Sophia Dunkley coming in and picking up where she's left off. Cutting there through backward point. Scoring runs through fine leg and through the covers. And of course, ever since then, rain's fallen, the covers have come on, and there's been a delay to proceedings. And it will remain to be seen if we do go beyond a certain time, whether the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern method will be applied here. See Illing and Jess Kerr both being quite expensive. Devine going for 14 off her over. And we see Sophie Devine and another player coming down, but you see there with Amy Jones's dismissals to spin, they've always been hit to the mid-off area. Just another reminder as well that if rain does come into play in the match, heaven forbid, is abandoned, New Zealand will end up with 1 point and their campaign will be over. So the West Indies will go through. So just updating this. Ireland, of course, shocking the West Indies with a brilliant 6-wicket win over at Bristol, which meant that the West Indies are now reliant on England doing them a favour. Seeing some snapshots of South London on the television right now. Certainly a very lovely venue, and we're hearing Alice Capsey talking about her youth growing up, of course, and there is a mural dedicated to her outside Surrey Cricket Club. They play their matches, of course, at the Oval. Surrey, of course, the home of another English batting great, the late great Graham Paul Thorpe. And of course, steeped in history, this was, of course, the ground which was effectively the birthplace of the Ashes. England losing to Australia at home. The mock notice, of course, in the newspaper the following day, saying, sort of paying tribute to English cricket, which died at the Oval, lamented by a circle of friends, saying that the body would be cremated and the ashes taken to Australia. Then England went to Australia and vowed to win back the Ashes. In the manner of speaking, they did. One of the bales was burnt to ashes, and the ashes were kept in a small urn. So the winner of the Ashes series would receive that urn every 2 years. Another reminder, of course, New Zealand won the toss, chose to bat, England feeling an unchanged side. New Zealand also more or less unchanged. New Zealand batting first, scoring 163 for 6. England needing 164 runs at 8.2 and over. Currently, they are 65 for 1, 7 overs bowled and 13 overs remaining, needing exactly 99 runs. Smart money is on England to win this. You see a rainbow forming. It does look as though the skies are clearing. So will there be a resumption? No, I can tell you the cover's already off, so we should be back with some action. And with the rain having stopped, I'll be back to watching the action rather than depending on Cricinfo highlights. We see now that Sophia Dunkley and Danny White-Hodge are already walking out to the middle. So it looks as though the rain delay is about over. Or is it? Once again, my signal is starting to have a few interruptions. Hopefully not very, very much. Still have a dedicated number of people sticking around and joining in, so thank you very much indeed for watching the coverage with me. And lo and behold, signal lets me down at the worst possible time. I just wonder if that summer rain has sort of come down here. Well, I can hear the thunder, but I've got no choice but to power through. I can literally hear the rain on my side. So that means that should be restarting actually in about 2 minutes according to the updates on Cricinfo. So once again, it will take a little bit more time. Yeah, the signal has in fact returned, and I can tell you that some of the players are on the field right now. We should see Sophia Dunkley and Danny White-Hodge coming out to bat, and yes, they are coming out. They are, in fact, at the crease. So we are back on the way. Start of the 8th over. Amelia Kerr going for ace off her first over. 2 fine boundaries through point and the covers. And Bree Ealing coming back into the attack. Of course, the worst part as well is that when these advertisements come on my television, they can actually interfere with live coverage. So a bit of a pain more than anything else. Yeah, well, sadly, there's no pictures on my television set, but I can tell you right now that Ealing did start the over. First 2 deliveries, dot balls to White-Hodge. Second ball was sort of outside off, hoping to connect, but she didn't quite do it. Third one was a short delivery on short, banged in short on middle and leg. White-Hodge ducking. And the first delivery, of course, was angled into White-Hodge, who ended up staying leg side but defending. So 3 dot balls so far in this over from Bree Ealing. And of course, there is this idea. There is some hope from a few watchers that maybe the bowlers can get some help after the rain, but in actuality, after the rain, the ball ends up skidding onto the bat a little bit better, making it a lot more convenient for batting. This is absolutely irritating, it has to be said. The Cricket Info page isn't really updating, and well, after delay, there was the fourth ball bowled, and I can tell you right now that yeah, the fourth ball actually was a dot ball. Fifth one was played for a single by White Hodge, and then the final ball was cracked for 4 by Sophia Dunkley. So 5 runs off the over, and that takes England to 70 for 1 with 12 overs remaining. This is absolutely irritating from my side. It really is. Because the worst part is that my internet signal can also adversely get affected if I'm not careful. That's much better. And of course, Mealy Kerr ended up bowling the next over. And once again, she's been taken to the cleaners, bowling to White Hodge. First delivery, the batswoman jumped down the track to the tossed up ball on middle, smacked her over the covers for 4. Dot ball on the second, but 4 runs on the third, and another dot ball on the fourth. So once again, 8 runs conceded. And this isn't really good stuff from the New Zealand skipper if she's wanting to try and contain and get some wickets. Bowling has been pretty loose, not applying much pressure, and England could end up winning this on a canter. And there was another boundary off the 5th ball. White Hodge literally, taking her everywhere. And then a single off the final ball to retain the strike, which makes it 13 off the over. So England are now 83 for 1. 11 overs remaining. Okay. Well, Nancy Patel bowling the next over. And a single from White Hodge. 1 run from Sophia Dunkley. The third delivery, once again, absolutely ruthless. Stepping into the length, opening the shoulders. An inside-out thump. With a wide long off. Wonderful timing. And with this, she moves on to 44. Not too long before she gets another century. I mean, another 50. I don't think she'll get a century this time around if unless she continues to bat through the innings. Maybe she could. That's 2 runs off the next ball, making it another 8-run over so far from 4 deliveries. Of course, Mealy Kerr struggled with her line in the previous over, and the 5th ball actually was dragged down the leg side. Again, if you're not quite able to get your lines and length right as a leg spinner, you are asking for trouble. Two runs over point, of course, from the 4th delivery. 5th delivery was a dot ball, looped into the legs, but the last ball, of course, taken for 4. So, 12 runs off the over, and that makes them now, you've got to say, favourites to really win this match. I think it's fair to say, of course, now they're at the mid-innings break. England just look unstoppable at the moment. They've only lost just lost the 1 wicket out of Amy Jones. They've looked exceptionally ruthless. And then Tahuhu coming back into the attack. First ball is smacked for 4. That was a length delivery, too much width. And 4 more to deep third man. Nancy Patel's last one was sort of a cross-batted shot across the line, but thick outside edge going all the way through to deep third again. It's like when things are going your way, they're just going your way. And I can also inform you that Tahuhu's third ball to Dunkley is a wide, so that brings up England's 100 in rapid time. Not even 10 overs. And you can just see it now. New Zealand are literally losing their campaign. The West Indies, of course, are going to be very happy with this because now they know that there's no way that New Zealand can win anything from here. 2 dot balls from Tahuhu. Full length delivery, pushing Dunkley back onto her stumps to defend. That was the 4th one. We should be getting someone coming in to relieve me, because obviously if I can't watch this myself, it wouldn't really be fair for me to, continue. So maybe someone can relieve me. That was, of course, the 3rd delivery, and the 4th delivery from Tahuhu, also a dot ball. Dunkley does take a single off the 5th ball, attempting the cut shot, too tight to the body and straight through to the keeper. Of course, I can tell you that Wyatt Hodge did actually reach her half century at the end of the 10th over. And the last ball from Tahuhu's over. Smoked through the covers for 4. And so at the end of the 11th over, England are 105 for 1, having scored 10 off that over. So they need 59 or 54. Barely a runner ball. Bree Illings come back into the attack, and her first 2 deliveries are dot balls. First one, of course, played to backward point, well fielded. And the second one was just defended, but once again, the 3rd one was taken before. Dunkley smacking that in front of point. Then Illings' 4th delivery isn't wide. That boundary, of course, was played past the point sweeper, with Dunkley opening up her stance, moving to the leg side. And that wide actually was a bit of a bouncer. Decent delivery, but a little bit too short and going over the batswoman. Fourth delivery after that was a dot ball. Fuller delivery, which Dunkley saw, but wasn't able to time her shot down the ground. Just taking a look at the run progression, the worm, as they call it. You can see England is so far ahead, they're sort of diverging away from the New Zealand worm at the moment. Another wide from Dunkley, this time from Illing to Dunkley, this time down the leg side. And then on the 5th ball, they take a single, bringing Danny Wyatt Hodge back on strike. Danny White-Hodge on 54 not out from 34 deliveries. And you just know that with White-Hodge in this sort of form, it's like almost every ball she gets, she will smack that to the boundary. Another 4 runs will take her to 58 not out. $11 runs off that over. And that takes England to 116 for 1. With 48 balls remaining, and they need exactly 48 more runs. So a runner ball will do it. England needed to win to end New Zealand's campaign. Looks as though they'll be doing that. New Zealand's campaign never really got started after those 2 opening losses to the West Indies and Sri Lanka. A close win against Ireland, which kept them alive, followed by a somewhat more straightforward win against Scotland. You could tell, though, that they just were never really in it, and it's a rather ignominious way for 3 fine servants, Sophie Devine, Susie Bates and Leah Tahuhu, to end their careers. But, that's sort of the way it goes sometimes, and these 3 will be remembered as having played their part in a fine era for New Zealand cricket, winning a world title and also getting established. And so Amelia Kerr will have to pick up the pieces. So being in the 13th over, Jess Kerr bowling to Dunkley, off the legs to the onside. And then the second ball to White-Hodge, it's as if every ball she sees now is just going to be smacked for a boundary. That's the type of form she's in. And the leading run scorer for the tournament, she's not letting up anytime soon. Dot ball off the 3rd ball. So that sort of delays things a little bit. Tighten to the stumps was the 3rd ball, and the 4th ball is also another dot ball. Danny White-Hodge is now on 62 not out from 38 balls. Full length delivery from Kerr to White-Hodge, a tangle of bat and pad as the ball nestles at her feet. Danny White-Hodge does take a single off the 5th ball, and it will be interesting to see if she ends up maintaining strike for the next over. Already 6 runs from it, so England still on course to make sure they win. No century for White-Hodge today, I think. I don't know if she's going to have enough runs to play with. And the final ball is, of course, a dot ball tucked to the onside by Dunkley for no runs. So it will be 6 runs off the over, and White-Hodge will be back on strike. But England are now 122 for 1, 42 balls remaining. They need 42 more runs. I'm just going to get to the comments a little bit briefly. England should definitely win. I don't even think magic will help them, Chandler. So Nancy Patel back into the attack. First ball is a dot ball. No run. Of course, the partnership has reached 86 runs. They would certainly like to make it another century partnership for England, the way Danny White, Hodge and Amy Jones did against Sri Lanka. So Patel basically now bowling round the wicket. And the second ball was played for a single, back of the length, and played to deep cover. Third ball is a dot ball to Sophia Dunkley. No run from Dunkley's bat. Dunkley has been very aggressive since her comeback to the team, but is now more or less happy to play second fiddle to the marauding Danny White Hodge. So third delivery, a dot ball. Fourth delivery, also a dot ball. Fourth ball was, of course, thrashed hard, but straight to cover. 2 runs to Dunkley, though, off the fifth ball, tucked off the pass of the leg side. And they do rush back for 2. Tuck off to square leg, one would think. And the final ball is also hit for 2 runs, so that's 5 off the over. So England are 127 for 1 with 36 balls remaining. Needing 37 more runs. All right, so there is going to be a drinks break before we get to the final 6 overs, and goes without saying, really, that New Zealand, simply put, have not been able to get anything, and I think there's now a quiet acceptance that their campaign will now effectively be over. 37 off 36. I don't see them defending this. I don't see them bowling England out. And truth be told, they just were never really in the tournament at all. Those 2 losses set them back horribly. They should quite rightly have lost against Ireland, only for the Irish to sort of, muck it up in every single way. And of course, with their 3 stalwarts retiring, Neely Kerr's going to have a huge amount of work to do to be able to lead the team into a new era. Well, I can tell you right now that there is some live coverage of the Panama-England game also on this channel. Hanno and his friends are hosting that, of course. Yeah. I will give you some team news as far as the England game is concerned. Yeah, Tuchel, it is confirmed that Tuchel has made some changes. It is Jarell Quansah who will be starting at right back, with Nick O'Reilly returning at left back. Anderson and Bellingham are going to be in the double pivot, and Morgan Rogers comes in. Bukayo Saka also starts, and Marcus Rashford earns a start. So you get the feeling that this is the game that Tuchel is eyeing to really make sure England can lay down a marker. And if Rogers has a good game, then this could very well be the formation or the lineup going forward. Does Declan Rice come back in with his questionable fitness? Remains to be seen. Anyway, the 15th over has started. It is being bowled by Mealy Kerr at the moment. White Hodge takes a single off her first delivery. Dunkley takes a single off her second. The 2 runs already from it. And that huge sound of thunder means that I'll probably end up having to end this not long after the match gets over, because I do not wish to continue to depend on Cricket Info updates when I can't see or hear things clearly. And Mealy Kerr's third ball is smacked by White Hodge for 4 runs. That takes her to 69 and then 70 with a single off the 4th ball. The field was up, so Danny White Hodge was able to drag her shot from outside off over the top of mid-on, and that went for 4. And White Hodge takes a single, of course, off the 4th ball. That brings Dunkley on strike. And then Dunkley cracks a 4 of her own. And the last ball is a dot ball. So 3 singles and 2 boundaries make it 11 off the over. And you've got to say that at this rate, it really is all over bar the shouting. England go to 138 for 1. 30 balls remaining. They just need another 26 more runs. Once again there, Dunkley getting inside the line, smacking that on the stroke past fine leg. And that brings up the 100 partnership from 68 balls. Brilliant stuff. Mealy Kerr's last ball is chopped out to point. And of course, this Sophie Devine back into the attack. And I can tell you that her first ball has been smacked by White Hodge for another 4 runs. And that takes White Hodge to 74 not out of 45 deliveries. So with 22 left, she's not going to get her century, but she will get there or thereabouts. Easily the informed batsman of the tournament. White Hodge opening the face, picked up through deep third man. Kneeling to the wide, full 1 and lifting out of the keeper's gloves. Single for White Hodge off the second ball. A single for Dunkley off the third, bringing White Hodge back on strike on 75 off 46. Sophia Dunkley as well playing a fine hand herself. 44 off 34. She's 6 runs away from the 50. Could very well be that she might get a chance to achieve that target of her own. We all remember how in the first game between England and Sri Lanka, Danny White Hodge was under some pressure to get her century in the final over, and she eventually did. So no run off the fourth ball. Back of the length into the keeper's gloves from Sophie Devine. And Sophie Devine to White Hodge. White Hodge does take a single, moving her on to 76 from 48. Single to backward square off the fifth ball, bringing Dunkley on strike, and Dunkley doesn't score. So, 7 runs off the over. And that takes England to 145 for 1. 24 balls remaining. They need 19 more runs. I am pretty sure the player of the match will be Danny White Hodge. An amazing innings, continuing her amazing form. I don't think there's any other outstanding candidate that could be worthy of this award, regardless of how well England bowled against New Zealand. There's, of course, Jess Kerr back into the attack. Bowling to Danny White Hodge, and Danny White Hodge smacks her for 4 runs off the first ball, moving her to 80 not out of 49. Full length outside off, opening the face of a bat, slicing it perfectly through deep third. 2 runs off Jess Kerr's second delivery, moving on to 82 off 50 balls. Strike rate of 164, moving along very nicely. A lot of people have been saying that motherhood has brought out her best form. Could very well be the case. We do have someone joining the studio. I want to welcome that person right now. Hanno, hello to you, Bud. I'm really glad you came in to relieve me. Have you got the TV on, by the way?
Yeah, I've got it on.
Because I'm stuck over here, really, with no TV due to the heavy rain. And I had to depend on Cricinfo updates. So you can take over and I will sort of follow your lead.
Okay. Let me just go to... probably England should win. Looking at it all.
They will win. They will win.
They need 11 from 20 balls. Jessica Carr is bowling. Danny White Hodge about 17 runs away from her 100. Looking at the highest partnerships in a wicket, this partnership ranking 117. What? Danny, I watch. It's a massive 6, and that is going to be the game. Massive 6 over mid-on area, and it's now 5 needed of 19 balls. Danny, I what? Saying take that.
Come on, Danny. Let Sophia get her century. Come on. I mean, her 50. She's on 45 of 36.
England players are coming down in the changing rooms. And she hits one down, but straight to the fielder. That will be the over. Sophia Dunkley will have the chance to get her 50. Just so easy for England right now. Just too easy almost, could say.
And you've got to say, Boyd, that is really, it just sums up New Zealand's campaign. They were never really in it. A lot of inconsistencies with selection and, the team playing. Leaving Susie Bates out of the lineup for the first 2 games, you have to say, really cost them. They missed her experience. Her and Leah Tahuhu, mind you.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of Leah Tahuhu, she's going to bowl the 18th over to Sophia Dunkley. Will be facing Sophia Dunkley. Can she get to a 50? Sophia Dunkley goes for almost a reverse scoop, reverse sweep, but hits it against a pad. So dot ball there. Sophia Dunkley batting at a strike rate at around 120. I mean, she is a very decent strike rate for her. Look at the most dot balls bowled in this match. Yeah, do have Illing there from New Zealand. And shot there by Sophia Dunkley through mid-wicket area, and that will be 4. And England need 1 to win. Sophia Dunkley, she needs 1 to get a 50. And she will, unless it's 4 dot balls in a row, Sophia Dunkley will get her 50. Just a bit, it goes for the leg cutter, bit too wide. Sophia Dunkley just swings her hands through it and smashes it for 4. Of course, the win of course England will play India
And that's
or
going to be a wide, I think.
That's
a wide, so no half century for Sophia Dunkley. Absolutely tragic in a way, but she won't mind it at all.
Yeah, a wide down the leg side. Sorry, down the offside, and unfortunately, a smile there from Susie Bates and all of the New Zealand players. Yes, smirk there. Unfortunately, she doesn't get to her 50 and get a T20 World Cup 50 to her name, but I'm sure she will have lots of more opportunities. And yeah, that is the game. England won by commanding 9 wickets. New Zealand only able to get 164, and England chasing them really comfortably.
No surprise as who the player of the match should be, of course. Danny White-Hodge. Magnificent innings of 89, continuing her red-hot form. I think that should take her to nearly 300 runs for the tournament. In fact, when you take a look at the top 5 run scorers, the other batsmen in the top 5 are all from teams that have of course, just been eliminated, including Darcy Carter from Scotland, who scored over 200, an absolute bright light. All the Prendergast had 180 odd. You could say, Hanno, that this tournament has been one where the bowlers have really dominated more, and with the exception of one or two batswomen, the other batters haven't really had an easy time of it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think the bowlers have dominated almost in every game except when England has batted. England or Australia, except when they are batting, it seems to be difficult. So yeah, they're clapping off Guard of Honor for, I think, Susie Bates and Sophie Devine.
And Leah Sahu. And I was saying, of course, that with these three fine servants
as well.
I was saying, of course, but with these three fine servants departing,
so
there's a huge hole that's going to be left in the team, and Amelia Kerr will have a huge responsibility of trying to take the team forward. How does she replace that talent? How is she able to bear that responsibility on her shoulders?
Yeah, all three women just giving each other a hug as they step off the field for one last time. And now it's a new era for New Zealand. New era for them. The tears are flowing for Tau. But this, of course, does mean West Indies have qualified for the semi-finals as runners-up in the group. And they know their opponent. They're going to play Australia. And it will be England we'll see tomorrow who their opponent is. And just a shake of the hands between all of them. So yeah, comfortable for England in the end. Comfortable, very comfortable.
I mean, obviously New Zealand are very disappointed to suffer a pretty bad exit, but you can see there, surprisingly, the New Zealand cricketers are all smiles as they're paying tribute to their departing legends. Inside, though, I think they'll be hurting. You know, they came into this series as the defending champions, and I wasn't really happy with what Amelia Kerr said when she said that this was going to be a clean slate, and they didn't want to think of themselves as defending champions trying to defend their trophy. They wanted to start afresh. You know, when you have that sort of an outlook, it's almost a defeatist mentality, it has to be said.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. But I also think that probably correct because, look, it's not the tournament that they wanted. And knew coming into this tournament that probably they needed to. It was going to be a hard tournament, especially with all three of these ladies retiring after. So I feel like they're just giving it a clean slate because after it's going to be the next World Cup is going to be a different one. The ODI World Cup will be a new chapter for New Zealand cricket. That's why I think they are going to maybe just write this one off. But I wouldn't have said that coming into the game. I would have been like, let's go and try and win. Let's go put up a decent total, which to be fair they did. But unfortunately just not enough.
Yeah, it wasn't really a decent total because I did say that Ebony Rainford Brent and Ian Smith at the pitch report were saying that if they wanted to bat first, which is what you'd be expected to do at the Oval, once you win the toss, you've got to set a big total for them to chase. And 180 or 190 would have been what New Zealand would have wanted. Apart from Amelia Kerr and Devine, and then, of course, Izzy Gaze and Brooke Halliday, they weren't really that big, those big contributions. We did see Maddie Green and Susie Bates inch them over to 163 before Bates got run out off the last ball. And of course, the way the match proceeded, Bates wasn't required to bowl any overs. She normally would bowl at death. But I think, we should find out very soon who the player of the match would be, although there really can't be any surprise as to who it would be. You take a look at the scorecard, of course. England bowled brilliantly to restrict them, but no real outstanding bowlers. I mean, Danny Gibson sort of broke the back a little bit, taking the wickets of Sharp and Kerr in one over, and then Sophie Devine was threatening to really, go downtown, but then Bell got rid of her. And yet there weren't really any outstanding bowlers, so I think it really goes without saying that Danny White-Hodge will be the player who takes home the headlines. And for Sophia Dunkley, it's a sign of her character that she's not even really that fussed about just missing out on the half century. She's delighted seeing England win. And confirmation that Danny White-Hodge is the player of the match, so she shall receive her award from Isha Guha. So I'm going to mute my screen and find out what she's saying. And I see you've already muted yourself too.
Yeah, I expected that she would be the man of the Manchester, giving it to her. Let's just listen in what she says.
Well, Danny White-Hodge there saying that she hopes to watch the football tonight, but it's kicking off in about 10 minutes, so I don't think she's going to have time to get to a telly and watch it. Lovely little trivia, of course. Sophia Dunkley was the bridesmaid when Danny got married. So obviously they're thick as thieves. They bat together regularly at the Oval, and they know the pitch very well. Always very flat. And of course, when the rain comes down, it sort of helps the bat come onto the ball a bit easier. So it could very well be when Amelia Kerr gives her interview, she will realize that batting first was probably a little bit of a mistake. But having said that, the New Zealand bowlers just never really got their lines right. They never really were able to, tie England down. And it was just a case of, two outstanding informed batswomen taking the match away from England. But now a big conundrum is, although Nat Skipper-Brunt didn't come back into the side today as expected, she will be coming back for the semi-finals. So who could possibly be dropped to make way for the returning captain?
I don't know if you can drop anyone right now because they are just playing some great cricket. But let's have a look. Maybe Danny Gibson.
So you want to replace an all-rounder with a captain who's really only playing this tournament as a batswoman? I see some
Maybe.
logic in that. Go ahead.
I don't think you can drop anyone else.
Could very well be that if you want to maintain the balance of the side, it could be Heather Knight that makes way.
That would be a bit harsh. Yeah, of course, they showed their replay of where Danny did nick the ball glove, surprised Amelia Kerr. So yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what transpires tomorrow.
Yeah, and of course tomorrow will be the big game between Australia and India, and I'm pretty sure you'll want to do some coverage of that. I'll be more than happy to help you if I get the time, so I shall keep you posted on that.
I know we will be live for South Africa's game, definitely.
Yeah, South Africa playing Bangladesh, right?
Yes, Bangladesh. Bangladesh are out of the tournament, luckily.
Even if they were to beat South Africa, they probably wouldn't
If
go
they were
through.
to beat us, they would be back in the tournament. Of course, they would require Australia to hammer India by a good, probably like 10 wickets, bowling out for like 70 ball, and won by 10 wickets almost. That's because
Even with
Bangladesh
South
met
Africa,
on
though,
it.
the interesting thing is, assuming, of course, that South Africa do play England in the semi-finals, which will be a repeat of, obviously, that semi-final that was played when you hosted the tournament and Sune Luce was captain. You know, your batswomen are now coming into form as well. Obviously, Laura Volvart's outstanding, but, you know, that innings from Tasmin Brits, you know, she had been dropped for the first few games, but now she's come back and sort of solidified her place. And then you've got other players like Dirksen coming in and also doing very well. Marizan Kapp, of course, you know, with that fine innings against India. One person who's had to make way is Sune Luce, the ex-captain, of course, who captained the team when you hosted the tournament. But I see you've got your balance right. It might be that your bowling needs a little bit more working on, perhaps.
Maybe, but I'm not sure I would change on our bowling. Because I don't know, do you leave out? That's my thing. So, yeah. But
Because I'll tell you what, you still have the core of the side that reached both the last final and the final before that. A strong core. So there are some players I do like. Left arm spinner Mlaba is absolute quality. Ayabonga Kaka is a fine seamer. Shabnam Ismail, I'm not too sure why she was brought out of retirement. But I think, again, occasionally we do see that the fast bowlers do struggle with their line and length. And we will start to hear now from the captain, Amelia Kerr of New Zealand. Well, I mean, the match has already started over in the US, so the ladies, if they are going to if they are going to watch them, I think they're going to miss the first few minutes. And Charlie Dean's made it clear that they're going to enjoy the game at a pub, but on Diet Cokes. Very well said. And of course, Charlie Dean continuing to talk about how the batting order stepped up wonderfully, in particular Danny White-Hodge. Not even getting that much sleep, but still playing really well. And of course, this venue will be the venue for both the semi-finals. So with the final to take place at Lord's. So basically, when you in the first things, there probably will be a little bit more in terms of bounce, but it will come onto the bat a little bit later. Still a little bit, it'll be a little bit flat in the second innings.
Yeah.
So they'll be happy with that.
To be fair, well done to them. Absolutely deserved. And yeah, now it's down to Australia to beat India.
Yeah, and as far as Amelia Kerr was concerned, obviously she was, quite pensive and reflective about the game today. Basically,
but
offering
I think
too
definitely
much.
Batting second was a problem. Or batting first, sorry, should I say?
Yeah, and I think in hindsight as well, Amelia Kerr was talking about how, they still believe they put up a good total. I actually believe that they were at least 20 runs or so short. She did say that it would have been a competitive total if they had bowled in the right areas, but they just off a little bit too much in terms of width. And I think the tournament was a bit disappointing for them in terms of, the standards of their fielding and how they've let themselves down a bit. Quite excited for the future, but also grateful for the three legends who've retired, how they mentored her when she came to the White Ferns setup. And now she's got the responsibility of taking the team through a new future. One thing I like about Amelia Kerr, Hanno, is that she does perform very well. She can look back on this tournament as definitely one of she's been one of the most consistent performers in this tournament. But she is also going to have to make sure that she gets her own tactics and her own reviews spot on. Charlie Dean as well needs to learn when and when not to use reviews, because when it comes to using the reviews, sometimes if you're a bit too impulsive, it'll cost you.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
So just a reminder, of course, this was coverage of the Women's T20 Cricket World Cup, England versus New Zealand, live from the Oval, which is also going to be the venue for both of the semi-finals. England will be playing the runners-up of Group A, while the West Indies, who qualify as Group B runners-up, will be expected to play Australia. New Zealand needed to beat England today in order to make the semi-finals, but failing to do that, the West Indies went through. Ireland shocked the West Indies, giving New Zealand a chance, winning by 6 wickets, but in the end, New Zealand couldn't capitalise. They won the toss, they chose to bat. Both teams, of course, unchanged from their previous games. New Zealand batting first limped their way to 163 for 6, which in the end proved to be 25 runs too short. England needed 164 runs, which they knocked off with 16 balls remaining. Danny White-Hodge top scoring with 89 not out, deservedly player of the match. And West Indies ended up qualifying for the semi-finals as runners-up in Group B. And of course, Susie Bates, Sophie Devine, Leah Tahuhu announcing their retirements, of course, at the end of this tournament. 3 fantastic servants. So tomorrow's action, of course, we'll see South Africa against Bangladesh. And of course, the huge crunch match will be Australia versus India. Hanno and I think Jean-Loup will be bringing you the South Africa-Bangladesh game. But Hanno, what are you going to look forward to from your game against Bangladesh?
I'm looking for us to be pretty comfortable. Okay, maybe rotate a few of the players, giving myself probably Laura Wolford a bit of rest. Then Nathan Nikas and I lose. I want them to play and get chance out in the middle. Desmond Brooks can definitely play. Give, I think, Kaka Cup. Definitely Ishmael a rest. Also give him Lauba as well, a rest, feel like. I think we can change a bit of the lineup because it's Bangladesh we should be winning. So, yeah.
Bear in mind, of course, Bangladesh did beat Pakistan, but that probably had a lot to do with Pakistan being pretty poor all tournament. At least like Ireland, they ended their tournament with a win, beating the Netherlands fairly comfortably. But as far as Australia and India are concerned, while Australia could also, in theory, look to rest players, I don't think they will. England didn't rest any players today. And India certainly cannot afford to rest any players. They're going to need all of their big guns in top form, the likes of Mandana, Harmanpreet, Verma with the bat, and then with the ball, Deepti Sharma, Sri Chadani, a few others. They're going to have to really be on top of their game. So an India win will send them through to the semis at South Africa's expense. But if India lose, it could very well be that run rate will come into play. And that sort of comes into play more than a head-to-head report. But we've had a few people watching. Not too many people in the comments, but I know that those who are watching really did, stay throughout despite the issues from my side. So thanks to all of you who joined in. And Hannah, before we end the stream, I want to thank you for coming in to relieve me because literally without you, Buet, I was struggling. So, Danke, I mean it.
No worries, it's all good. But thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And yeah, we should be looking forward to a great day of cricket tomorrow.
Okay, so if you're going to sort of continue watching Panama against England or whatever's live, you do that. I'm going to sort of take a break and get something to eat because I am famished. But as always, we will see you tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves. Be safe. Be happy. God bless. And we bid you adieu.
Bye.